This review sample was kindly provided by Lynn Sol in exchange for my personal, private, secret opinions. Normally, I wouldn't be super excited to try something like this, and I don't really want to make a habit of reviewing budget IEMs, but I do already own the first version of the Blon BL03, and I was curious about any improvements or changes they made. The BL3 was only available in polished metal, so it's great to see the new version is also available in black. But that isn't the only change. The newer version has a slightly thinner nozzle. Okay, it's actually 0.2mm thinner, which I doubt anyone will notice. But the nozzle length has gained an entire millimeter in length. The old version being 5.5mm and the new nozzle is 6.5mm. The overall shape and size of the in-ear monitors appears to be unchanged, but the 2-pin connector is also different, going from the NFZ/TFZ connectors to the classic exposed 2-pin connector. This might not be an accurate comparison, as I'm not comparing to the new shiny metal version, but the newer black version is also 0.8 grams lighter than the predecessor. The new driver is a little less sensitive than the original and contains an updated version of the 10mm carbon diaphragm. Usually this means that it has been treated with a vapor deposition layer of carbon, as an actual fully carbon diaphragm would increase the final cost considerably. The new cable is an enormous improvement over the old, with far greater tangle resistance, custom hardware, and single cables after the Y-split, instead of the old dual coils, which are trash and shouldn't exist. For example, I prefer the cable on my $3 Vido or K-Bear flathead earbuds than the silly, ultra-thin coiled cables many brands keep putting on entry-level IEMs. The only two things that might be a downgrade for some is that the plug is now straight instead of right-angled, but they make up for it with the shiny, and that the ear hooks are still too strong, which still make it difficult to put these on one-handed. I have attempted to train the cables to make the hooks more gentle, but they do slowly return to their original shape, so maybe it just needs more time. On the whole, ergonomics haven't changed much, and while it's completely subjective to the user and your own ears, I found the fit has gone from moderately bad to okay. I still struggle to fit the originals in my ears. My ears have almost zero tolerance with them. The new version with the slightly longer nozzles increases that tolerance, which is great, and makes them actually usable. However, even with these 3 sets of tips that were supplied, only one set of tips worked well with my ears to get a proper bass seal. Each set of tips appeared to be a different density of silicon, so in this case my ears only mesh well with the softest, most jelly-like tips. Finally, the included carry pouch has been upgraded from a synthetic velvet to what appears to be cotton. In every single way, I very much prefer the new BL3 Mark II design. I will mostly be comparing these to its legendary predecessor, the original BL03, and a handful of others. BL03. The BL03II has better imaging and more staging width. It's also technically better, but the original is closer to modern target responses. Treble is still just as piercing on the new version, but it sounds louder because it has less bass than the original. Overall, the newer one gets a bit closer to mid-fi IEMs, only lacking a tiny amount of detail, but clearly lacking staging and a bit of imaging. CZZ BC01 Pro. These are cheaper, lighter, have better ergonomics, for me, and significantly superior imaging, but less refined detail and tone, and a worse cable. SIMGOT EW300. Overall quite similar, but the SIMGOT edges out in the lead in pretty much all aspects other than sub-bass slam and texture, but clearly shines the most for its better cohesion and treble quality. Rose Technics QTX. It sounds more upper mid-range forward and needs the best amping to shine, while the BL03II doesn't seem to mind which amp it's plugged into and sounds more neutral, but the QTX has a much more musical presentation with a more lively, spacious soundstage. Kiwi Ears Quintet is more similar to the QTX in most regards, also with a more energetic sound, despite also sounding more focused than the QTX. Just regarding ergonomics and build, all of the above take less than a quarter of the time to put in my ears compared to the Blons, because the BL03 Mark II's cable coil around the ear is still too tight. When listening to music, the original BL3 is obviously bassier, which is great for heavy metal and a lot of bass-focused music, but is objectively not correct, and for example can sometimes add too much warmth to bass guitars. The new version is a step towards objectively more accurate sound. Simgot EA1000 and Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite. The BL3 Mark II somehow perfectly falls between these two with regards to tonal response alone. The EA1000 has sweeter upper mids and a more accurate treble. The Orchestra Lite has drier bass and a more relaxed sound overall. Mainly I noticed that the BL03II's bass was the most likely to distort and was not as clean or clear as the other two, with a noticeably muddy sub-bass. But to keep things subjectively fair, the BL03II's sub-bass digs incredibly deeply with a good amount of energy that isn't quite as good as its predecessors at slamming sub-bass, but still has more than most of the IEMs I've previously mentioned. Overall, if the latest meta-tuning was a Spectrum, the BL03II gets very close to that, but leans ever so slightly on the brighter side and is almost let down by its brighter than average treble, but remains within acceptable limits. On one hand, it might actually be one of the most technical budget IEMs around, but with its slightly mushy sub-bass and average soundstage, it only comes out just below getting top marks, which of course shouldn't surprise anybody. If you add that to the build quality, plentiful accessories, and more eco-friendly materials, looking at you, cotton carry pouch, you're looking at one of the very best all-round packages in the entire budget segment. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.